Today in EditorX, we are building this beautiful thing by this designer on Dribbble. So with that said, let's jump into it. And more specifically, what you guys are gonna learn from this video is one, how I built this and really broke down for you how I built this website. Very short and quick, but also you guys will learn a lot about how I built the interactive hover animations. So with that said, take a peek. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and enjoy learning how to create some really cool hover interactions on EditorX. Hey everybody, so we have built this design by Shahadat, Hussain in EditorX. So first of all, let's take a look at it. So here is our design, the desktop version. We also have the tablet version. Let's go ahead and make this responsive here. So we have made it so that this drops down to tablet. And this also drops down to mobile and with a functioning menu. Of course, now what we also want to show you is that this also is clickable. What you see right now is we just have the content, or actually, this is an older version. The newer version right here, we have a clickable version. So what we have set this to is basically when we click this, it takes us to google.com. So what we're gonna do in this video is just show you, do a quick breakdown of how we've done this. And as well, we have dropped in the description the asset library for you guys to try this out yourself if you so desire. We have put all of our numbers, all of our gradient text, our light text, as well as the photos down in the description below, as well as our menu icon and our design lab logo. So let's kind of go over how we did this step by step. First off, let's take a look at our pages here. First off, let's clean up our menus so we can see the hierarchy of everything that I've built. And we'll go over this step by step. So first off, what we've done here is we have very simply one section that is 100% on desktop, 100% VH, vertical height. After that, what we have is, and what that is basically is saying, hey, section, please just make sure that this entire section takes up 100% of the vertical height of the device or the screen of the device that we're looking at this website on. So basically, if just like we're looking at right here, this entire section is taking up the full width of this, what we're looking at here. So it's basically stopping right here, which is the 100% viewport width of my browser. So from there, what we have is a repeater. And for those of you guys who are not familiar to EditorX, EditorX has these things called repeaters that you can find in the layout tool right here in repeaters. And we just pulled out one of these puppies. And instead of 3, we've added 5 items, and we have made it so that we have 5 items per row. And we've just stretched this to the entire section. From there, we have our items within our sections. Essentially, we've turned the opacity of that gray. If we take a look at this, they come out as a default of gray. We've just turned the background to 0%, but before that, we also made it sure that, again, let me just show you guys. Let me select this section or this repeater. I've just pulled it and scaled it to the entire section just like this. And I have zeroed out both the horizontal and vertical margin, just like this. Now, just to showcase, another thing that we've done is we've applied a grid and we've made it 1 by 2, making it so that we can separate content on the top and the bottom of this repeater. And let's show you what that looks like in the actual repeater that we have. So the top grid cell we have is basically containing our number, and the bottom cell is containing our title. And why we've done that is because this content is docked in the proper places. So let's actually go to our layers here. Let me go to our first item and let's select one of these titles here. We have 2 titles. We have a gradient title, which is basically not being shown right now because it is in our interactions. In the initial state right here, the opacity is turned to 0, but let's set this to 100 for right now so you can see. And let's close this part of the menu. All right. So let's click done. So now we see that we have our gradient titles here, and we also have gradient versions of our numbers up here as well. So we have our title, both the white and the gradient version, and we have the same for our numbers. We have the white version and the gradient version. And now let's go ahead and take a look at our layout. So the docking we have set to basically center. We just want this text to stay right where it is, and at the top we want to have, actually let's we have negative 53 pixels and a 0.5% margin to the right. And this really helps us align both the gradient and the white titles so that they're on top of each other. And basically we just are saying with docking, hey, stay where you are. Please don't dock anywhere. Just stay in the center of exactly where you are as the page responds or becomes responsive as we push and pull from the desktop breakpoint to the tablet and mobile. Now, if we take a look at our white number here, we have this docked to the bottom and to the right. Reason being is, and really we could simply just dock it to the bottom here so it's docked to this, but you know, we want this number to stay docked and really respond and stay in this exact corner. So, but we'll just leave it here for now. So let's go ahead and turn off our top gradient here. Let's go ahead and go back to our interactions here. Let's go to initial state. Let's drop this down to 0 pixels again. And let's actually talk about what initial state means. So, and what gets us there is actually talking about the interactions. So how is it that we've made it so that we go from white text to gradient to actually making these sections actually move? Let's talk about it. And what's great about repeaters is that all you have to do is really design and edit one cell. For example, if I go into our layers here, and for whatever reason, I go to my white title text here, and I just decide to move this a little bit over to the right. As you can see, all of the other text as well also moves over to the right. I'm just going to Control Z that, but I just wanted to show you that to demonstrate everything that you do in one cell happens to the rest. And essentially all you have to do is just change out the vector or the different assets, for example. So let me go to the bottom title and let me change the art. Let's do a 04. Here we go. And so changing the elements within a item does not make the items inside change as well to the other items within the repeater. So the only thing is that it takes the hierarchy. So it just knows that a vector art piece is going to go here. What we decide to change it to will not happen to the other items, which is awesome. Okay, so let's Control Z all of that. And let's go back to our animation and talk a little bit about that. So let's go to our item here in the breadcrumbs. Let's go to our item and we are going to our interactions here. And let's make sure, let's go to our triggers. What we've done is we have created several hover interactions here. And what we've done is we have set interactions based on everything that once we have this item hovered, basically. So if we go to preview, we're basically saying, hey, EditorX, once somebody hovers over this item, please make these things happen. So this is what we've done. We have created a couple things. So if we go to my cover or my layers here, there is a cover over top of everything, which means, and which basically is, let me reduce the opacity, is basically an overlay over top of the images behind everything. So I have our shapes by default set to 100%. And one of the things that we're telling when we hover on an item, we're saying, hey, EditorX, please, on hover of our item, please change the opacity of our cover, which is an effect. And so how we've made that effect is really when we created a trigger, add trigger, we already had to hover. We went to add new interaction. We went to the affected item. We did not do item self. We selected on the canvas what we wanted to have affected. So we simply just selected the cover. So I'm going to select this item. I'm going to select the cover and we have the basic shape selected. We're going to hit done and we are going to go ahead and set the effect to be custom. We're going to just call this second opacity or second cover opacity. And all we've done is right here when we're animating what the effect is we can design the initial state, which is already opacity is 100, and we can design the secondary state. And what we'll do is we'll set this to 0 opacity. And there we go. So now what I wanted to do is I'm actually going to set this to 80 because we want a little bit of a background so we can create some contrast between the words and the background image. And so I'm going to hit done. And so now when I preview, we have that effect for the cover going to from 100% to 80% on hover. And we pretty much do that to many other of the elements. We just repeat the same thing. So we've done that to our gradients as well. So I'm going to go ahead and select my gradients. And by the way, one of the things that is slightly tricky in EditorX is when you, for example, if I select my item here again, the effects that I make, the hover triggers stay on the item element. But the effects, they are not on the item. They live within the element that we have changed. So this forward animation is only referring to that forward right movement of the cards. So to show you where the element effects are living and where we can edit them is, so we'll go to our layers here, we'll select our cover, and we are in the interactions tab inside of the effects, and right here we have second cover opacity. So that's pretty simple. And I'm just gonna delete this because this is just redundant. We have this original opacity here, which is, we can go ahead and edit, is at 50%. So we'll just leave that. All right, so basically I have done that to a multitude of these pieces of content. So for example, if I go back to item here, our item, let's go back to trigger. We have done that for our title opacity for both the white title and the gradient title. And so what we've done here is I'm gonna go and select our gradient title here. And I'm gonna go to our interactions, effects, make sure I'm selecting the title gradient. And so we have the title opacity here. I'm gonna select this, I'm gonna select, this is our initial state that we want, and it's set to 0. We're gonna set that to 100. So you can see what that looks like. And we're also going to set our gradient number. And as you guys can see, as I change one effect from one item, it affects the rest of the items in the repeater. So it makes this process really easy. I just have to edit in one item. So I'm gonna select our white number here, or excuse me, our gradient number here. I'm gonna go to our effects, number opacity. We're gonna go to the initial state. We're gonna set this to 100 because I just want to show you how everything starts out. So essentially how I first design these things is I pull out everything onto the artboard. I get everything into place, and then I'm like, okay, well, now I want to start getting into some animation. And I'll just go along this process with you. And now I kind of see something over here. We need to actually change an asset because it looks like there's two white assets here when we need a gradient. And by the way, if you're wondering why I can't hover exactly on our numbers, is we've actually created buttons for these sections so that these sections are clickable. And we'll talk about how we do that in just a moment. But for right now, I'm gonna go ahead and delete that. So first things first, I am going to select my vector art. I'm gonna go to change vector art, go to my site files, 05. There we go, perfect. All right, so now let's walk through how we're gonna do these animations. And I am actually going to delete our previous one. So I'm gonna go and select our gradient vector files. I'm gonna go to title opacity. I'm going to delete this. And I'm gonna do the same for our gradient number. I'm gonna hit done, and I'm gonna delete. So let's walk through. And one other thing, I am also going to go to my item and go to effects and delete our forward animation. Okay, so I'm gonna preview this. Now this is kind of what we're looking at. Everything is static. All we have is that cover animation. So let's work on our title text here. First off, we're gonna select our gradient text. We're gonna go ahead, go to our inspector, triggers, or rather we're gonna go to item because that's the thing that is going to trigger all these things to happen. We're going to go to add, not item, or self. We want to choose what happens or what thing is affected by hovering on the item. Choose on canvas. We're gonna select our title here, our gradient title. We're gonna hit done. We're gonna apply an effect, select custom, and we are going to call this gradient title opacity 0%. And so we are going to design the initial state. We want the text on hover to appear. So rather than editing this hover effect, we're going to edit the initial state. And as you can see, both on the right-hand side, they're both 100% opacity. So we're gonna leave 100% opacity for the hover state. The initial state, we're gonna set this to 0. Hit done. So now you can see all we have left is our white text on all items just after editing one element and one title. We're gonna do the same thing for our number here. So I'm gonna select our item again, add a new interaction, not self, affected item. We're going to select the gradient number. We're going to make sure that that vector art is selected, hit done. We're gonna apply a custom effect, and we're gonna call this gradient number opacity 0%. We're not gonna worry about the timing. We're just gonna go ahead and, oops, we do want to worry about that. So I'm gonna click on this. I need to edit the initial state. As you guys can see, this has not changed. So we need to click on the vector art, go to effects that we've just created. We need to edit this, and we need to set this, not the hover state, to 0%. We want that to be 100. We want the initial state to be 0. Perfect. And we'll hit done. So now we're stuck with all our white text. Perfect. From here, one of the things that we didn't do is essentially we did the reverse for our white text. When we do have a hover effect, right? Once we hover, essentially we're saying, hey, can you just make the white text disappear? So we did the reverse. So what we just did to our gradient text, just do the reverse to the white text, and you will have this effect. You'll keep the gradient and you will make the white opacity, or the white text, have 0 opacity on hover versus 100%. Okay, so let's go back to edit text, and now let's go ahead and add in our forward animation. So again, going back to our item, going back to our inspector, going back to our triggers. Add new interaction. Item this time will be self. We're gonna apply an effect, and we're gonna use the forward interaction here. Everything I'm just gonna leave here, and I'm just gonna hit done. So now we're gonna preview, and now we have this beautiful effect like this. Okay, now one of the things that I do want to mention is by default, you will not have these cards go over top of one another. One of the things that I needed to actually manually fix or change is in the repeater, there is a setting where it has a display type and a direction. The default is left to right, and as you guys can see, this changes the order of the cards here. I changed it from right to left, and simply, so let's take a look at this. From left to right, this is what it looks like. Let's go to preview. The cards animate underneath of each other. I didn't like that. So what I did was very simple, is I selected the repeater, went to the inspector, selected right to left, and I went to my layers panel and I rearranged my items. So right now you can see that obviously they're in the correct order. They're from 1 to 5. But if I switch them from left to right, it will, which is the default state, it will be 5 to 4. So what I had to do was basically go to my layers, go to my items here, and just take the first item here, drag it to the top. And now you can see 1 is here. So basically I had to rearrange everything. So definitely keep a lookout for that to get this effect. And make sure that you're using your repeater cards. Again, let's take a look at the settings. Repeater cards from right to left to get an overlaying effect. So let's take a look at what we have so far. It's pretty easy. So from here, all I've done to make it responsive is if we go to edit site, and a lot of people get intimidated when we get into tablet and mobile on Editor X, but it was very simple. All I did was I went to tablet, and if we go to repeater, all I did is I went and changed the card list or the card view to list view. Because if we go to card list, we get, kind of this look, and everything is kind of, scaled. So all I've done is gone to repeater, go to cards, go to list, so everything stacks. All of our animation will be the same because all the animations that we use across, breakpoints, or all the animations we create, whether they're hover or click, those interactions stay across breakpoints. Our menu is still looking good. And, going from iPad to mobile, or tablet to mobile was pretty simple. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so I hope you guys learned a little bit of how to use hover interactions and kind of see how I built this website in Editor X. If you guys want to also try to recreate Shahadat's, Hussain's design in Editor X, you guys can. Check the link in the description. We have used and given you guys the Editor X asset library that we've used to create this page. We have the logo, the menu icon, as well as the gradient and white numbers and titles for this project. So with that said, if you guys want to take a peek and really just try your hand at creating this responsive website, please do so, and also let us know how you fared with it in our Discord, also linked down in the description. So with that said, I'll talk to you later. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and I will see you in another EditorX tutorial. Brandon Groce, out. And before we go, one of the last things I want to share with you guys is how to make these sections clickable. So far, we have basically created the animation, but how do these people actually go to these pages if they were them? So one final thing, guys, how do we make these sections that we so beautifully designed actually be clickable and send people to another part of the website or maybe to another URL? How do we do that? So let's talk about it. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is go to edit site, and I am going to select one of my items within our repeater. What I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to add elements, and I am going to go to my buttons, and I'm simply going to drag a random button inside and attach it to our items here. I'm going to make sure it spans across both of my grid cells. I'm going to make the width of this be 100% and the minimum height be 100% as well. I'm going to make sure to left align and basically center these puppies inside my item. And I want to delete the text inside each one of these buttons. Because what we're going to do here is, first off, delete that. But more importantly, we are going to change the background of these buttons. We're going to set the color of these buttons to 0. Now, if we preview this, it looks fine, but we have a hover animation on top of them, which is basically this blue color. Now, you could do something very interesting with that if you so desire, but what we're going to go ahead and do is we are going to go to our button, go to our inspector, and we're going to go to hover, and we are going to reduce this down to, you can keep the color if you want. Maybe you want to leave, a little something special. Maybe you want to leave it at 4%, or you can just leave it to 0. Really, we're just trying to make a link. But, for a little flair, we'll leave it at, a little 2%. Okay, from here, what I'm going to do is, now that I have my button selected, I'm just going to go to my link, and I have a whole bunch of places I can send the person who clicks this. I can send them to a page. I can select it here. I can send them to a web page, which is what we're going to use right now. So I'm going to set this to google.com, and I'm going to hit done. So now I'm going to go ahead and publish this. I'm going to close out my other pages. I'm going to view site. And now, rather than just an arrow when hovering over these sections, I actually get a clicking hand. So now I can select this section, boom, and we are brought to google.com. So ladies and gentlemen, that is how, from soup to nuts, the breakdown of how I built this web page. If you guys want to have an even more in-depth video, please let me know. But I think it's super important that you guys got to see, 1, how to create very intricate hover interactions, 2, how to make not only just one hover interactions, but blend a whole bunch together, and 3, really how to not just make cool sections, but make those sections clickable and actually be parts of the navigation of your website. So with that said, if you enjoyed this video, please like this video, subscribe, and also please let me know in the comments if you want to see a more in-depth type of this video or for this website, and really just what other content you would like to see. But other than that, I hope you enjoyed this video. You guys can click to your left right now to watch more EditorX tutorials. And also, please check in the Discord if you guys want to learn more, network with amazing creators and individuals like yourself. Please check out our Discord down in the description below and join for free. With that said, I'll talk to you guys later, and I'll see you in the next one. I hope you guys liked this episode. If you did, you can find more build from scratch website tutorials with me right here, or you can find more EditorX tips and tricks in this playlist over here. With that said, I hope to see you guys in another video. And of course, if you liked this episode and what we're doing here on this channel, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next one.